Hollywood loves to put a liberal spin on historic events, including the Bible. I am just one small voice, and would like to let my displeasure be heard, by turning the tables around, and doing a story on one of their favorite subjects, liberalism, with a biblical theme of my own. I hope you enjoy it. As you know, liberal Hollywood always takes its time, leading up to the story. In Noah's Ark, they start off at the beginning of time. They claim it took God 8 years to create the universe. This is simply not true. It only took the real God 6 days to create the universe. However, the liberal God spent most of his time on the golf course, and the decisions he made forming the universe consisted of his following admission.
I drank beer heavily and tried drugs enthusiastically.
Liberal Hollywood always claimed their God was the smartest guy in the room. However, he was the only person living, so in theory, he was also the dumbest guy in the room. He got extremely lonely. However, the liberal God was also extremely lazy. So he quickly threw together another living person, without actually looking over what he created. He soon realized, although his plan was over 2,500 pages long, he forgot to look them over. Instead, he was stuck with a monstrous, wrinkled creation he would have to live with for the rest of his life. Knowing he made a horrible mistake, he quickly invented other humans, but this time he put smaller than usual brains inside them, so they would ask no questions, and just blindly obey and follow his every wish. He called the second group of subhumans MSNBC. The simple-minded liberal God soon realized he made a horrible mistake. By creating so many uneducated and lazy creatures, they never realized they had to work for a living to sustain themselves. So they forced the liberal God to provide them with food stamps and housing, and not wanting to have to work for it. This took up much of his time and resources. Realizing he had no other choice, the liberal president then decided he would create humans who were willing to work, and also supplied them with intellect. He then decided that these decent people would now be regulated, being forced to work and provide for the MSNBC people. He called this new initiative a tax. The MSNBC people were quite happy with the arrangements. They ate, drank, and procreated with reckless abandon. With one problem solved, the liberal president then addressed his most serious one. On the first creature he created, he forgot to put a soul in. They were constantly bickering. So he came up with a plan. He told her she would become his mouthpiece for the world, and she gladly accepted her new duties. He immediately sent her to her first assignment. It was a small city, in what is now called Libya. He figured, what difference does it make? No one can be incompetent enough to blow this assignment. Once the liberal God was able to rid himself of the Serpent Queen, he promptly fell rather frisky. He heard about a girl who required $900 a month to quell her prowess in the bedroom, and promptly sent for her. This peasant girl closed her eyes, knelt down in front of him, and held her mouth open in awe for being in his presence. The liberal God, not missing an opportunity, inserted what he told her was the key to heaven's gate. Afterwards, he sent her back home, thinking she would never say a word about what just transpired. Once again, as he has done all throughout his tenure, the liberal God made an embarrassing mistake. For once down on earth, she told people what had just happened, and word spread quickly. The liberal God once again counted on his uneducated messengers to try and spin the story. Realizing this mistake was bigger than he thought, he called upon one of his angels to be sent to earth, and ordered him to fix this problem before his serpent queen wife found out. The liberal God promised him, if he was able to accomplish this feat, he would provide Earth with statues, thus immortalizing his presence on this planet. The offer was too good to pass up, so the angel accepted his challenge. The angel knew he had a daunting task in front of him. So he decided to scour the earth's souls, to see if there was one person, with such darkness contained in it, he would be willing to deceive his own people with outrageous lies. Alas, He found the perfect swindler amongst his own kind. He developed an ingenious way to plant his devilish lies. He would direct his venom at the less educated MSNBC followers. He would then zero it in on the young people, who for the first time in their life, are leaving their parents' guidance, opening up their minds, and being trustworthy to the venom their college professors would fill their heads with. At such a young age, they do not have the experienced train of thought to realize their college professor, and the liberal God they were shown to obey, are fully capable of filling their heads with lies, and distorting the truth about their opposition. They are taught that the Constitution and Bill of Rights are truly not the rights all Americans are born with. Worse yet, family-oriented, church-going, hard-working, law-abiding citizens are what is destroying our nation as a whole. Knowing it would be nearly impossible for them to talk to each person individually, they came up with a plan. They would produce a media outlet poster, and call it Media Mutters, and spread the liberal God's message by constantly repeating,
I did not have sexual relations with that woman. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false, and I need to go back to work.
Unfortunately, for the liberal God and Media Mutters, the young damsel saved her blue dress, which contained evidence she was telling the truth. The liberal God, now realizing that he had been caught in a red-handed lie, was forced to admit the following.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with you that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong.
Unfortunately, for the liberal God, he got a double dose of bad news. Not only has the people he was sworn to protect found out he can no longer be trusted, the Serpent Queen that he created found out about it, and she was blowing off steam. She also encountered problems of her own that had her fingerprints all over it. This simple task he appointed to her, to look over the people in this small city of Benghazi, turned into utter chaos. Humans were killed, some heroically, and with many of her subjects demanding answers, she has chosen to ignore the subject, and devised a scheme to cover up her ineptitude. She will attempt to blame another human being for the tragedy by saying he created a movie that upset the perpetrators. As stupid as this sounds, the MSNBC followers accepted this as fact and stated, if you do not believe her, you are misogynist. The bumbling liberal God and his Serpent Queen forgot about one thing. There were still people on Earth who had a full-size brain and some intellect to them. They quickly dissected their story, and found out they were telling the people another lie. Worse yet, they also found out she knew the attack was coming ahead of time, and did nothing about it. After being caught putting a lie on top of a lie, the Serpent Queen vowed revenge. At this point, no amount of human suffrage would matter to this wicked woman, as long as she can keep her vanity and dignity. She then instructed her MSNBC followers to spread the word that a new crisis has hit the planet Earth. It will be called global warming. She made up a lie, so outrageous, even she was not sure her followers would believe it. Apparently, she misjudged just how simple-minded the uneducated are. She warned them, the North and South Poles will soon melt, flood the planet Earth, and cause widespread death worldwide. They believed her, and quickly accepted this as fact. Now her plan was in place. She will make her liberal God have it rain for 40 days and 40 nights, then have the uneducated believe they did this to themselves. Many of the uneducated were scared, and wondered if any medical treatment would be available to them while the storm persists. She told them, don't worry about it, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. After all, what does another lie matter, as long as you have the drive and desire to reign supreme? So now the evil Serpent Queen has put her plan in place. All she needed to do now was to find an old senile man who would follow her every command without thinking. One such candidate arose. She ordered him to build an ark, and to collect all the animals on Earth, 2 by 2, and load them into the ark. She only had one stipulation, that all these animals were to be gay. The old man asked, Where would I find such a bunch of animals? She replied, the Democratic National Convention. The old man followed her orders to the T, like she knew he would without even thinking of the consequences involved. And so it rained upon earth. For 40 days and 40 nights. The 41st night soon came upon him. However, it continued raining relentlessly. All the uneducated soon drowned, because of the liberal president's mishap. The educated ones, who didn't trust him, took off and headed for higher grounds. They were the survivors. Where was the liberal president, after he promised the storm would end soon if only people trusted him? It has been 6 years now, and yet the storm still exists. When liberals are elected to office, look what happens. New York will soon become as dazzling as Detroit, because of all the high taxes and ignorant laws they pass on to their citizens. California, a once great state, is bankrupt. Meanwhile, conservative states like Texas, the Deep South, along with the Dakotas are prospering tremendously. Even Michigan, who just a few short years ago, was destined for the same fate. Now they had a surplus of money, thanks to Governor Rick Snyder, and will be mailing rebate checks back to every citizen. Face it, people, liberal socialism does not work. Look at what is happening in Europe. Total civil unrest, when you have a corrupt government trying to run things. Only the rich get richer. It is happening here in the United States. The federal government is printing money and buying stocks to keep the market afloat. Only the rich benefit. Billions of dollars and not a single job created. The president gave over $500 million to a company called Solyndra. They donated heavily to his campaign fund, then filed for bankruptcy. Yes, corruption is definitely here. Whether you like the president or not, the fact is, his policies have been a total failure. The Serpent Queen will only ensure you more of the same.